Hello, technology tools for training and education friends. My name is Marcus LeGear, and this is my new tech tool journey video. This video is created for the 8300 course in the spring of 2024. Dr. Lorraine Schmertzing as the professor. Let's get started on my new tech tool journey. So the first stop along my new tech tool journey was identifying a new tech tool. So I made a list, a mental list, and wrote down a couple of lists of tools I remembered from my master's degree in instructional technology, as well as my classroom use face-to-face. And additionally, I worked 2 years in virtual, so I became familiar with quite a number of tools there. So I made a list of those and just began to remember a lot of those. The second thing that I did was I reviewed the Teach Thought Out article, 100 Essential Ed Tech Tools was the name of the article. And of course, 100 different tools. They were divided into social learning, content learning, lesson planning tools, and then there was one section called useful tools. And there were a lot of different tools, Quizlet, Draw, IO. There was also MasteryConnect, Canvas, Canva, Kahoot, just a lot of different tools in that resource. And then finally, I consulted the instructional technology coach team that I work with. There's 8 of us coaches right now. And so I just kind of had some conversations in a group setting with what kinds of tools that they thought it would be good to use and tried to get some new tools. Some of those were included were like Wakelet, Magic School AI, Teams Reading Coach. We discussed some of those. And that was my next step. And finally, I took those team conversations and kind of had about 3 different conversations with 3 different coaches and asked them more questions about Magic School AI, MasteryConnect, and iExcel. And the reason that I did that is I began to look at the tools. I began to think about what were the common assessment gaps. And one of the issues with common assessments across schools, across content areas, and across district is that assessments are not always the same. So we get a end of the year kind of milestone assessment, but sometimes benchmark assessments aren't necessarily the same throughout even a grade level, sometimes a school district. So those common assessment gaps were something I began to keep in mind. And I remember studying more about that in my leadership Tier 1 courses as we talked about equity across the district and how it's unfair for one student in one school to receive scores or evaluation or achievement scores based on this set of tests and this curriculum and these projects. And then if they go over to another school, that content looks a lot different and maybe less rigorous, and the assessments are much more difficult, and the student may not experience the same success. So in an effort to discuss or think about equity across the district, that's the reason that I decided to use MasteryConnect as my new instructional technology tool. MasteryConnect provides a foundation set of data where assessments are all accumulated, and they are student data is based off of standard. So it's easy to tell in moving from one particular school to the other, because districts will be able to create sets of common assessments that students, regardless of which school that they attend, those assessments would be the same, and the data would be applicable in one school and equally applicable in another. So that's why I chose MasteryConnect. The first step in experimenting, I just went to my Canvas course and looked in the global navigation tab on the left-hand side and found the Mastery icon and selected that icon. That's for MasteryConnect, and it connected me to the MasteryConnect page. Once I was in the MasteryConnect platform, I just experimented going across the top navigation tool from the home to admin rights, which we recently got, to the curriculum maps, and there's the trackers where you actually connect assessments, and then the assessment tabs where we could create assessments or bring them in, and then the items are the actual questions that go in the assessment, so you can pull from those. And then the more option is community, and that's where I found out that you can actually connect to other people in the same platform. Once I was in the When I selected the help option, I was brought to this MasteryConnect page, and here you can see there are options for learning, products, learn about different groups such as the Canvas group, the analytics group. You could also explore their conferences. If they have any kind of issues, they show you there. You can see my profile where you can earn badges. There's the community button. So here are a lot of uh, aspects or components for learning, contributing, and discovering. There's reading blogs. There's additional resources where you can see some of those known issues that they have, the map for Mastery Connect, as well as some activity in the Mastery Connect forum or the blog where you can ask questions and answer questions for other people. In the last part of my exploration, I clicked on the waffle beside my name and found a couple other platforms, but this online PD icon, and that took me to this amazing Canvas course. In this Canvas course, you can see there's an introduction and a lot of course content in each different module. There's several different modules. So I just wanted to point out that within the modules, there are videos that show you the different tasks and the different reports, how to do item banks. All of those videos are housed within that Canvas course, making it an excellent resource. Continued exploration in my new tech tool journey, continued some trial and error as I began to connect the Mastery Connect assessment to the actual Mastery tracker, and that the process didn't go very well at the beginning. I also wanted to speak to the best and worst exploration methods. For the Canvas course and PL videos, that was the most productive way of learning. Once I discovered that course, I learned a lot pretty quickly, and it was very productive. The random exploration, although it ended in the Canvas PL course, it included the trial and error and some issues that I had throughout in regards to exactly how do I know where the tracker is coming from, how do I connect those, where do I find the assessments, different thoughts like that. How can you connect different quizzes to the assessment? That trial and error process didn't work, so the random exploration method was not the most efficient method. And finally, within this exploration phase, there was the conversation with the coaches, of course, having the ability to talk to a colleague that is also a coach. That relationship is already there. And we know from the Les Fotos YouTube talk, the TED talk, the importance of trust and relationships and the importance of building those relationships. And because that's already built with my coach, it really made a little bit of the exploration phase a little bit easier because I learned how to access pretty quickly and gain a little bit of knowledge ahead of time that I might not would have had. So now let's talk about evaluation, specifically how the tool fared in the evaluation rubric. I've provided a table here. As you can see on the left-hand side are the categories of the evaluation rubric, and on the right-hand side is the evaluation score from each one of those categories. And at the bottom, you can see the evaluation total was 42 out of 54, and I recommended the tool. There were a couple of spots where the tool worked really well. The accessibility and technical categories both scored really well. I think accessibility, the reason it didn't score perfectly there was it was unable to work properly offline on some devices. And then I think under the area of social presence, there was a couple of concerns about data privacy. And under the mobile design, uh, Canvas doesn't have MasteryConnect working with all of the features as it normally does on the mobile design, so there are several viewing issues. So here's the evaluation rubric. Again, 42 out of 54, and I recommended MasteryConnect. Student feedback for the use of MasteryConnect was positive. Students were very familiar with digital instructional technology assessment platforms, and that included multiple choice questions. Some students did need some additional instruction for some questions that asked them to shuffle items in specific order or place things in order. They had some technical issues, so they needed additional coaching for that. Other than that, the students' feedback was fairly positive. For future coaching, I suggest a plan that includes professional development sessions, and the session should begin with an overview of the purpose of Mastery Track or Mastery Connect and Mastery Tracker, and then an introduction for teacher learners into the Canvas course provided by Mastery Connect that would walk them through all the basic processes of Mastery Connect, and then from there, some PL sessions that included building assessments, how to connect those assessments to trackers, and how to pull different data reports based on assessments that the county have pushed out or reports that the county may need. In addition to the structure of those professional learnings, I also think it's important to remember Cheryl Card's TED Talk, No More Bad Coffee, where she taught us, reminded us to reimagine those professional developments. And I think in this plan that there should be included time for additional application and reflection and refinement for teachers as they implement the tool as an assessment tool to help identify gaps in student learning. This is an example of a practice tracker that a teacher created, and you can see that the assessment here is connected, and that's the name of the assessment. And this is how students are tracked by their standards, and their performance on each standard is documented in this practice tracker. Here's an example of implementation of a master tracker, and you can see that remediation or nearing mastery or mastery is all delineated by cutoff scores and coded red, yellow, and green. You can also see at the top of the column, if you hover, that the standard is actually printed out for you for easy identification of the standards by number and by verb word articulation. Now you can see the assessments that are connected to that standard tracker. Finding the value of MasteryConnect was pretty easy. The number one value is the data sets, and you can print a lot of reports from that data, and you can identify learning gaps that students have. You can identify tier one and tier students or the interventions those students may need. Additionally, you can identify effective instructional strategies. If you see a teacher's class across a school whose mastery tracker is filled with students that are meeting the standard, then obviously those instructional strategies might be strategies that could be researched out even more, made applicable in other classrooms. And finally, I think one of the greatest values is Mastery Connect will help us shift from past the test to performed on the standard. And by that, I mean, currently in grade books and on report cards, many schools have, here's the test grade, here's the assignment grade, and all those grades come together to tell you if you passed the class or passed a test. However, when we have these mastery trackers, these trackers are based on standards and allow us to look at the student across a set of standards and how they perform against the standard, not just on tests that may or may not be correctly aligned to assess students on those standards. There are some improvements that I have to suggest for MasteryConnect, and the first one is just that it's a more intuitive program when you're running from MasteryConnect to Mastery Tracker. MasteryConnect is the platform, of course, that runs in the LMS, but that tracker has to be connected to those assessments, and that's not just an intuitive kind of process. You can get a little bit confused there, so I encourage MasteryConnect to make that more intuitive. Additionally, in creating assessments within MasteryConnect, increasing the variety of item types that can be included in the item banks from which administrators, coordinators, teachers of content areas can build assessments is really going to improve the quality of those assessments. And just a general note, I think that the aesthetic presentation for MasteryConnect lacks a little bit in the visually aesthetically pleasing view. So maybe some encouragement to cause that to be a little bit more robust in regards to how it appeals and how it looks to the viewer. So now let's look at the application phase of the process. I sent a recorded introduction video to the coaches, instructional technology coaches, and teachers that are part of the process. And then after sharing that introduction video, sharing where Canvas houses MasteryConnect, I then sent them a link connecting them to that MasteryConnect Canvas course that I showed earlier in the video. Of course, we know that based on adult learning theory, that if adults understand the why of what you're trying to get them to buy into, they're more apt to buy into it. So I shared the why being the data sets and how the data was reports were based on standards, how they could pull tier 1 or tier 2 interventions as needed for students. And so this connected my steps to adult learning theory. Additionally, we know that individual coaching sessions are always important. So in the next step, after teachers received a overview and then they completed some of those videos and modules in the MasteryConnect Canvas course, then I scheduled individual coaching sessions with them in order for them to create a mastery tracker and connect that mastery tracker to an assessment. So for the application of the actual tool itself, we had 4 IT coaches, instructional technology coaches that created mastery trackers, and those are coaches on our team. And then we had 1 science teacher and 1 math teacher that actually created the mastery tracker, connected it to an assessment, and then administered it to the students. So some adjustments that we had to make were originally we were going to have the coaches create the tracker and roll that tracker out to a set of students using some courses we had created ourselves and were participating in for professional development. However, in order for MasterConnect to operate, it has to connect to a student information system, and only certain courses were connected to that. As a result, we had to make some adjustments, and when I made those adjustments, that's where we got in with just the science and the math teacher actually creating the assessment, connecting it, and administering it to students. And so those adjustments were based on permissions that a course is not allowed MasterConnect if it's not connected to a student information system, which means that it has a set of data standards based on grade level and student information to pull into the MasterConnect platform. So continuing in the application phase, now that we've talked about how the assessments were rolled out, the cycle was completed in this way, meaning that I was an IT coach and I provided the tool and the training to the teachers. So we put it into the teacher toolbox. And then the teacher integrated that into the math and science classroom. And we saw that via the data resource or data sets that we saw earlier and the connection to the Mastery Tracker. Did MasteryConnect reach its intended purpose? Yes, it provided standards-based data sets for teachers. Additionally, the training, the teachers reached their objectives because they were able to learn about MasteryConnect, create an assessment to a mastery tracker, administer that assessment through Canvas, and then access data reports. So the intended purpose of MasteryConnect was achieved. In reference to universal design for learning, that was implemented and that followed the process because we treated the teachers with total trust, gave them total respect, and then they had full autonomy in making decisions. And you can see the quote that I listed there that said, "Trust and respect for teachers' autonomy and decision-making ability is critical in building a coaching relationship where teachers are willing to participate." We had to achieve those things. I had to convince some teachers to participate, and giving them autonomy in that decision making was certainly beneficial in that. And that's from the article Exploring Coaching for Powerful Tech Use in Education. Now, in the adoption phase of my new tech tool journey, I wanted to talk about the unique situation with MasteryConnect. The county that I work in has already decided to use MasteryConnect. However, it's only been piloted by 3 different schools in a county that has 35 different schools. So as far as it being a new tool and whether the county would adopt it or whether it would be adopted for a classroom, this situation is unique. So the tool is already in place. but it was good because I was able to model the adoption or an adoption process because I was able to experiment and explore with MasteryConnect. I was able to engage in the professional learning, be coached, and also coach someone else on MasteryConnect. And I was able to watch it be implemented in classroom as an assessment tool. So the adoption process, although it was a little bit unique, I was able to fully participate in that and experiment with the tool and see the uses that it could have in the classroom. In regards to professional development suggestions, information collection would be important for teachers and those that are going to use MasterConnect. Many teachers are used to grading by a test and not necessarily aligning items on the test to a particular standard. And this is a little bit different approach in that way. So I believe information about MasteryConnect and collecting that information initially is very important, whether that's in a discovery session or an actual guided session through MasteryConnect Discovery. Implementation and practice with other teachers, it should be a crucial part of the professional development for MasterConnect, especially going forward. Giving teachers the opportunity to build the assessments, connect them to Mastery trackers, take them within the Canvas course so they have the student's perspective, seeing that data, what it looks like when it's there and how it's pulled in real time, knowing what those reports look like and how they can use them and what information from those reports, of course, falls under the FERPA guidelines. And finally, I encourage the PL in professional development on the quality assessment building using MasterConnect. And that's just to give teachers, coordinators an opportunity to practice building assessments using the various items in the item bank while aligning them to different standards and making sure that the items cover different levels of DOK knowledge. Additionally, for instructional strategies, MasterConnect is great because it goes beyond just the data sets or the data reports that it gives, because it allows you to look at high performing classrooms and go into those classrooms and identify what strategies that are being used for those standards that are impactful, and then being able to share out those strategies with other teachers and then allow other students to experience them and possibly some of that same success. Additionally, the reports that you give, because they're color coded and show those cutoff scores, easily allows you to identify students that may need some sort of intervention in a specific standard. And finally, the long-term impact is shifting students and teachers from the I passed the test ideal to the thought of I made progress on this standard. I need to improve on this particular standard. Not only would they say I'm not good in math anymore, but they would be able to say, oh, I need to focus on my multi-step operations. And so this long-term impact can really have students and teachers more engaged in their own learning, teachers more in the learning design for students, but ultimately allow students to be responsible for their own learning in a more engaging way. Throughout this coaching process for teachers, keeping universal design for learning in mind was important. For teachers, I wanted to make sure that I included the why of learning. And that why of learning is how the data reports can help them as teachers identify learning gaps and whether their instructional strategies are as effective on specific standards. Of course, allowing teachers to set that goal of creating those data sets allows that why to be applicable, and that engaged teachers. Of course, the use of data sets, I've mentioned several times, that adheres to that why as well. And in alignment with Universal Design for Learning, we provided video alternatives where teachers could pull in the transcripts if they needed it. For UDL Design for Students, we implemented the action and expression, and that means they had a goal. The goal was to complete an assessment. Once they were done completing that assessment, they were allowed, that was their action step, and then they were allowed to have some representation, some expression, and discussion with the teacher about how they felt about the assessment and what they thought about some of the specific items that were there held within the assessment. And the why of learning, the action expression, of course, both of those are references to the module that we took from Janet Hearn in the Universal Design for Learning, which was helpful in designing instruction for the teachers and rolling out these assessments to students. That's the end of my MasteryConnect new tech tool journey. Thanks for watching.